Hi there. I'm so glad you're here. It's your host, Magic Mirror. Today I have something a little different for you. This video is not about victory and not about glory. Today's video is a story of struggle and loss, of bittersweet enmity. Yes, today I wanted to talk a little bit about ganking and about the state of invasions in Elden Ring from the perspective of your average everyday invader, Magic Mirror. The footage today is from a couple of best-case scenario ganks that went wrong. I chose these purposefully because we all know what the worst ganks look like when you have three teabagging albinoric heads who just dual-piked you to death and threw a shit pot at you to show you that they like playing with their own shit. These are more so average ganks, where the hosts flex the relative power that the system gives them, and I got within a hair's breadth of victory before being slapped down to the hell of defeat. So to start off, one of the streamers I follow, I believe it was Saint Riot, pointed out one of the metatextual meanings of a line that Knight Bernal says when he first joined the Volcano Manor, one of the two invader factions in the game. The Volcano Manor is a pit of recusants who spit at grace and hunt our own kind. I hope you understand the weight of my words. Know that the path you walk is blasphemy and leads only to a miserable death. Before you consider hunting any of your own kind, think on that. I'd like you to think on those words as we talk about invaders and gankers in today's video. See, Gankers and invaders have an interesting connection, an interesting entwining of the threads of destiny. What often goes unstated about invaders and gankers is that, because of the way PvP is structured in Elden Ring, we have a relationship that is both symbiotic and parasitical. Let me explain what I mean by that. Our relationship is symbiotic because we need each other to exist. This game is not Dark Souls 3. Dueling combat and fight clubs can be interesting and have a level of technical depth that can be fascinating to insiders, but it gets tedious quickly, and especially for streamers who are interested in showing their audience something that will captivate their attention and dazzle them in some way, it completely lacks the pizzazz and flair of a challenging, intense invasion. And these challenging, intense invasions can only exist because of gankers, and gankers can only exist because of invaders. The relationship is also mutually parasitical because of the anger and negative emotional energy that is generated on both sides of the battlefield. Gankers often become gankers because invaders are, perhaps rightfully so, seen as legitimate targets, since invaders tend to be very ruthless and will not hesitate to kill someone, whether they're a dual spear bulk out with 2000 HP, or a lamb gentle PvEer, fat rolling with a brass shield and a bloodhound's fang. And invaders often come to hate gankers, even though we need them, because a ruthless gank is almost completely unwinnable, and even an invasion that seems headed for success can instantly be turned into a loss, thanks to any number of cowardly tactics. Gankers feed off generating annoyance from invaders, and invaders feed off the desire for revenge that this manifests. In Elden Ring, the life of an invader is certainly a hard one. I think even the best invaders have run up against this before. You can feel the annoyance and frustration that Stilovsky or G9, Ouroboros or Saint Riot, Drunk Souls or Peeve, and the rest experience from time to time. Even the legendary Chase the Bro, who's sort of a bodhisattva figure that exists in a perfect state of calm nearing enlightenment, is not immune to this. The canned response to this is, of course, get good, which is kind of funny, since invaders tend to care more than anybody about improving their skills and learning how to handle every situation perfectly. But honestly, how good can a person possibly get? Even a hypothetically perfect player, a magical artificial intelligence, a divine superhuman being, etc., is still subject to the mechanics of the game, to its frame data, its hitboxes, and its wonky balance. Any ganker who were suddenly put in the position of an invader who fights 1v3s would probably very quickly learn how even literally perfect play can be punished in an instant. To even enter melee range of ganker, even one whose allies seem to be out of combat range, always puts you at risk for a variety of frame traps. Oh, let's see. While dodging the dual spears, the comet spam hits you. You take damage and attempt to disengage, and then you get spammed with Star Shower, which is virtually impossible to dodge and requires a huge investment to even partially dodge. You attack an enemy using Eleanor's pole blade, and the hyper armor starts up right before you can stun them. The resultant bleed buildup turns into a bleed proc from a Reduvia blood blade or a corpse piler, and that one moment of stagger from the bleed renders you vulnerable to the third phantom, who has just jumped into the air to hit you with a gigantic and now completely unavoidable Borealis's Mist. Or you get chased into a hidden phantom's unendurable frenzy, and the first hit stun you receive dooms you instantly, or else a rock that you rolled into dooms you similarly, or else you chase a phantom down halfway across the map, trying to roll catch their infinite rolls until they pop a talisman-powered waterfowl dance, and you are dead in a single L2, and fuck you, it doesn't matter what you did before. Stay tuned, I think you might see one of those in this video. And of course, these are just the worst case scenarios from gankers who more or less know what they're doing, who learned their builds and strategies from YouTube and have basic knowledge of the game. Anyone who has faced a pair of Brass Shield, Moonveil, Comet spamming noobs with a dual bleed Vari's Mask Twin Blade friend surely knows the truth. Invading is incredibly hard, and ganking is incredibly easy. For invaders, we're always thinking on our feet. It's one wrong move and you're dead, especially if you have the audacity to use anything that's slightly off meta. For gankers, there are almost no wrong moves except for splitting up like the Scooby-Doo gang and getting picked off one by one, and even then, it's pretty easy to reassemble. And you might say, just to be contrary, oh, of course there's a power imbalance. That's what invaders want, right? Yeah, no, absolutely. I like that. That's the insane thing. Some of the most fun I've had in this game has come from fighting the big, nasty ganks and winning or putting up a pretty damn good fight. But the structure of PvP encounters is determined by how FromSoft set the game up. There's nothing that says that gankers are necessarily entitled to the level of power and control that they have. Think about some of the advantages that hosts have in this game that would be easily removed by a couple of tweaks from FromSoft, some of which you've seen in this video already. The literally infinite string of blue hunters that get summoned whenever you have the whether you have the Taunter's Tongue on or not. The ability to turn the Taunter's Tongue off, the ability to infinitely resummon the same phantoms. Imagine how different every gank you've ever played would go if hosts simply knew that they had to play with the possibility of a second red invader being summoned in and turning it into a 2v3. How much that would eliminate the ability for gank teams to play passively until you lose patience and walk solo into the blender. I'd honestly love to see this. And I think it'd make things funner for the gankers too, after all. I'd love to see the gankers have to get good and try to overcome new obstacles. Be awesome, right? Everybody loves getting good, right? But that type of wishful thinking is exactly our mistake, isn't it, Invaders? See, we can't rely on FromSoft to change the game. And we damn well can't expect gankers to change their ways, to be a little bit more chill about how they play the game. Gankers have an entirely different set of ethics or ideals from us. We care about showing off our skills, we value taking on serious challenges and winning. Nothing feels better to that for an invader. And we feel, surely you felt it before, a real disappointment when we get an easy win. That's the most dissatisfying outcome, maybe, when you just hot knife through butter a solo host or a noob team, and you know that you barely had to push yourself at all, that you just knowledge checked people who wouldn't know the first thing about how to dodge an enemy player's attack. Well, most gankers don't give a shit about that at all. They're there because they don't care about whether they're good or not. They just want the feeling of winning. They couldn't give a shit about whether their sense of victory is authentic, even if they're playing on ultra easy baby infant child mode with Moonveil training wheels and infinite summon safety scissors. They just don't care. And the sooner we accept that that won't change, fellow invasion aficionados, the better. So, if FromSoft won't change, and Gankers won't change, what can we change? Great news. We can change ourselves. I'm not talking about getting good. Getting good is a moving target that you will never ever truly reach. You will never ever be good enough to win every single time against the hardest ganks. You will never be good enough to win every time against average ganks. No, I'm talking about something beyond simply getting good. I'm talking about getting enlightened. I'm talking about freeing yourself from desire and emotional attachment entirely. I'm talking about fucking meditative states, mindfulness, transcending tilt and entering the Pure Land. I'm talking about ignoring the internet troll voices in your head that tell you you need to get good because you aren't good enough. I'm telling you to not fucking give a shit when there's an albinoric head teabagging you and snickering to his Discord friends while they physically, literally circle jerk about it. I'm telling you not to care when you lose, whether you made a mistake or not, whether it was a winnable gank that went wrong in front of your 1,000 stream viewers, or an unwinnable gank that gave you the illusory, transient, artificial, empty, meaningless feeling known as helplessness. That's the only thing we invaders can do. The only thing we can change is our reaction to what happens. And once we do that, once we go beyond anger and desire for victory, once we go beyond wounded pride and frustration and stop caring about the things that we can't change, once we make ourselves truly indifferent to victory and loss and focus simply on playing the game and whatever happens, happens, that's when our true potential will start to manifest for the first time, when the true joy of simply playing the game will be revealed. That's when we'll start to win the games that we might otherwise have lost, and even if we don't, we won't give a shit. We'll just laugh and spam our recusant and bloody fingers for the next invasion. Everyone talks about, how legendarily calm and nice Chase the Bro is, and there's a lot of truth to that, but honestly, if you ask me, I think the person in our community closest to embodying this ideal has to be Lost. If you want to know who to model yourself after, watch Lost. Do you see how he always posts his losses? Even I barely do that. A lot of them aren't very interesting, but still. I mean, you hear plenty of emotion in his voice. You hear the joy of victory and the agony of defeat, but no matter what, he never gets crushed. He hardly ever loses his patience and slaps on the Metaville for the salty run back or rage quits entirely. He doesn't care about teaching them a lesson. He just laughs through it and moves on to the next one. Be like Lost. Don't let the experience of losing ever, ever change you. Always laugh through it. Always move on to the next invasion. Because when no one can control or manipulate your emotions, then no one can have any power over you.
Namu Amida Bu, Namu Amida Bu, Namu Amida Bu, Namu Amida. Namu Amida Bu, Namu Amida Bu, Namu Amida Bu, Namu Amida. Namu Amida Bu to Namu Amida Bu.
And so that's pretty much it. Don't let anyone have any power over you. Don't let your emotions be in control of you. Just try and laugh everything off and have a good time. You're not going to win every single invasion, and there are going to be plenty of unfair things that end up killing you, but try to enjoy the journey as we go along. So, in the spirit of living out our principles, let's do a little play-by-play of the last invasion of this video. So as you can see, I invaded a 3-person gank who was slightly, distracted by the Rune Bear. I guess these would be PvEers more than a gank, but you can see they've definitely got some dastardly tricks up their sleeve. So I've managed to separate one of them. She's using the dual curved swords with the wings of Estelle. It's a pretty cool Ash of War, but I do have her on the defensive. Great Axe is pretty good for dual curved swords. Chase her down and take her down with the Misery Cord. So now things should go smoothly, right? I mean, we've only got 2 phantoms. How difficult could that possibly be? Even though one of them is using the dreaded dual Naginata setup, which has extremely fast pokes and extremely low recovery, so it's almost impossible to trade with, especially when it's infused with bleed. The host joins us, and we see that they do have the Eleonora's Pole Blade, and believe me, we're going to see a lot of Bloodblade dancing in this video. So here's the point where I think everything is turning around. I was able to pull off parry successfully. I was a little panicky, so I didn't have time to switch to my Misery Cord for the riposte, but we figure that things probably are on the back foot now. However, we did not get the kill, so the dual spear user is still a threat, and as you can see, she has the full heal as well, so we're still under threat from that as well. So we think defensively. We start thinking about how we can make them respect us. Storm Stomp usually gets respect, right? Well, not against dual spear users, though. We can see that they're not using one of the worst Ashes of War, though. Sword Dance is something that telegraphs itself a little bit. So we decide that maybe we can earn respect by hitting Endure and going into a Burno Flame. We definitely put the host into the air, but the dual spear user is not to be daunted. And as you can see, a lot of bleed is building up at this point in the game. Trying to keep our health as maxed out as possible. We've got regen on, but that's still not going to do us a whole heck of a lot of good if we get bleed blendered. So we go for an attack that hits both of them. Doesn't matter. Still get poked. Still get the phantom bleed buildup, which might be the worst part of fighting a dual spear buildup with bleed, or a dual spear setup with bleed, rather. And there's not much you can do about that Bloodblade dance either, since it has an incredible amount of hyper armor. But we're not to be daunted. We're going to keep going. Keep leading them up here. A couple of PvE things are going to try and attack them, but it's not going to do a whole heck of a lot of good. I really think I'm going to land that parry, and I don't end up landing that parry, do I? I'm not even sure if you can parry Bloodblade Dance. There's another parry that we whiff. So we start going for some attempted quick strikes with the Battle Axe. Try and get some extra damage going with Flame Grant Me Strength. We take a Bloodblade Dance swipe, and then we figure, oh, we're going to just lead them here, Flaming Strike them, and then we can win. And it doesn't matter, because we're cornered, and we get procced with blood loss. And that's just how it goes. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu. Goodbye.